Hey, Talia here, and today on I Got Back Up, I'm joined by Alex Brooker. Alex was born with hand and arm deformities, with his fingers on each hand fused, and without a bone in his right leg, resulting in his leg being amputated. Navigating self doubt, playing in soccer aid, and working in television, explore how what we go through shapes us.
So, Alex, when you hear the phrase "I got back up," what does it make you think and feel?
I think for me, it kind of makes me think probably about more about a difficult time or resilience or when things have been going, you feel like maybe they've been going against your time's been difficult and when I've for me I've had loads there's been plenty of times in my life where there's been there's been I could think of so many of them. I'm sure I'll tell you about them now, where there's moments where it you kind of you have to stop and it can go either way, and you can go right. This is going. The problem that I've got at the moment is either going to kind of get the better of me or try and move past it. And that's kind of how I feel when think about I get back up. I mean, for me, I can start with you really from when I was. So I was born with my hand and arm disabilities, and I don't never know which one it is, but basically it's with one of the longer bones in your lower leg. I can't believe after all this time, 41, still don't know which of the bones I was born with that in my lower right leg. But either way, I had one of them, and my mum and dad had to make the decision to amputate my foot when I was about 18 months old. So I had that done in Great Ormond Street, and since then I've worn a prosthetic leg. So I've kind of been a prosthetic leg user all my life, and I suppose it's quite an interesting thing with me because people they know me from my television work and obviously work at the Paralympics and soccer and things like that, and they know I'm an amputee. But it's an interesting thing with me because I meet lots of amputees through my line of work, and actually for a lot of them, like when you lose your foot later on in life, there is genuinely a getting back up for a lot of people. But actually, for me, even though I'm an amputee, it's quite interesting. I don't know the pain and rehab that you have to do. I was a baby, so I wouldn't have even been walking anyway. And so actually, it's kind of an interesting thing with me because yes, I'm a prosthetic. I've lost a foot, but I've lost it at a time when I don't remember, and all of the things that are associated with that, all the rehab and the surgeries and all of that is obviously my mum remembers it all. Obviously, she lived it all, and it must have been incredibly difficult for her. My dad remembered it when my dad was still with us, but I don't. So it's quite an interesting thing that I don't. I'm kind of yeah that. But I suppose in that is my first instance of kind of getting back up because I know that the outlook for me when I was born, it wasn't. You've got to bear in mind, it's a different time though. It's 1984, so you're looking at like it's a different. The outlook on disability and things like that was very different to where we are now, 41 years later. And so it wasn't a great outlook for me. Like I always remember, my dad told me the story that he bought me some or some trainers. He bought some trainers or football shoes or something like that when I was born. And when I was born, someone turned around and said, "Well, you're gonna have to chuck them now." And I remember thinking, what? Obviously, it's quite not a great thing to say to someone. I remember thinking, why did my dad tell me this? Because obviously, it makes you feel, it was make me feel sad for him, if anything. But actually, what it did is it stokes like a fire in you, and I can't really describe it. The idea that someone thinks that you won't be able to do something, or that they look at you like maybe you're less, or they think of you as less, it gives you a motivation, which I just think is actually very much it served me extremely well during the course of my life. It really has, and I think about it all the time. I think about it now. I don't even know who it was that said that, but I think about it. I've thought about it when I'm on like even though I did 10 mile on the exercise bike in the gym the other day, and I was struggling. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't struggling because I had one leg. I was struggling because I'd been out drinking on Friday and Saturday. But uh, I remember thinking about like it kept, when you kind of some people stop, you kind of keep going a little bit more. I think when people have kind of given that outlook for you that may not be great. So yeah, when I was a baby, that was, I've still got my very first prosthetic. I'll be honest with you, I've turned it into a Christmas decoration.
Is it very little?
Yeah, do you want me to quickly go and get it? Hang on.
No, it's quickly gone.
Go and get it. You didn't think this is where it's going to go?
Okay.
Hang on.
So just anybody that's listening, Alex has gone to get his prosthetic leg. So if you're watching, you will be able to see it. And if you're not, then I will share it somewhere on social media for you to see. But I'm very excited to see this, especially as Christmas is coming up. And he's coming back.
Here we go.
It lights up.
I stuck Christmas lights on it.
Oh my God, look at that.
It's not as in, it's kind of, it should be something that's really endearing, but we put Christmas lights on it for an episode of Last Leg, and I've never taken them off. But
No, I like it. I like that the lights flash as well.
yeah, I know. No, we got. Oh gosh, it's, this was when telly had bigger budgets, mate. There was. Yeah, so I've just got all these silly lights on it. But this is, I remember my mum gave me this, and I think she wanted me to kind of treasure it and it to be a symbol of how far I've come. And what I've done is turn it into a Christmas decoration, which kind of says a lot about me, I think.
I like it. I like it. It's endearing. I like it.
Yeah, you say it's endearing, but let's be honest, it's pretty weird.
No, I don't think it's weird at all. No, I actually don't. I really don't. It's, it's who you are and it's a bit of you. Someone thinks it's weird. You know what? Let them think it's weird. I don't think it's weird. I think it's great. I'm expecting to see it on top of the Christmas tree.
Well, I don't know. I'll get my daughters. We might put it on there.
Yeah, no, 100%. You 100% should. But it's interesting what you say about how when somebody says that you can't do something, how it fuels a fire in you to. It's almost like prove them wrong, but also prove to yourself that you can.
Yeah, I think it is. It's quite it's an interesting thing with me about how how I motivate myself. That's always how I have done it. And like my personal trainer at the gym, Sam, I remember there was a thing where we were trying to do deadlifts, and I remember he was saying, you'll never get. I think he said like, we'll try 120 kilo. And I was doing really well with it. He went, we'll try 120 kilo, but you won't be able to do that. And he knew. And the thing was, is that because it's so funny because I went then I went straight away and done it. But he said it deliberately because he knew it would give me like that extra push because he knows me so well, and he knows that's what I kind of, what I needed at that moment in time. But it's also interesting that you like sometimes I always kind of especially like when I've done soccer aid and things like that. I've always gone like, oh, people expect me not to be able to do this. But then someone said to me, well, what people? And you kind of go, just people. And they're like, yeah, but who? Like, have you been reading messages online? I was like, nah. They're like, well, who said that then? And it's kind of a part of you where it's actually something, the bit of me that there's almost like a siege mentality part of my brain, which is almost still set in that mindset, which is assuming that people are going to think that I can't do something. And that essentially is my own voice, which is saying it's me that's saying it. You can't do this. And then it kind of, well, people think you can't do this, but no one's essentially said that. And then that gives me a motivation as well. And I think that's always been, when I was a kid, it wasn't as much there. It's only something that's gone into me as a little bit more when I've got older, kind of when I hit my kind of teenage years. Because when you're a kid, it's a weird thing. I never really, I've been asked a lot about like my childhood, and people go, oh, it must have been so difficult. Was it frightening and going in? Because obviously I had a lot of operations done and stuff like that, and on my hands, and I had some other stuff off, in my left foot, which is essentially the healthier foot. I've got something called talipes, which is kind of like club foot sort of thing, where it curves in. So I've had stuff done on my legs over time. But I remember people go, it must have been so tough. And actually, I just don't remember it that way, really. I just remember I don't remember really thinking about it too much when I was younger. I just got on with it. I remember having an operation on my hands, then going straight out in the school playground playing football with my mates. I remember the thin ladies doing their nuck, so like you're not meant to be playing football. You got your hand bandaged up, and then I played, and I was getting it dirty, and they were like, right, we've got to get you in and stuff like that. You've got, can't get an infection, all of this business. But I never remember thinking, God, this is awful. I just kind of got on with it, really. And actually, for me, I remember I used to see, we lived in Kent, in a place called Ashford in Kent. I remember going up to hospital. I used to like almost see it as like a bit of an adventure. I remember I used to sit in Great Ormond Street, and I remember laying there, and it was like, because you're in London, it's a big city. I was just like listening to all like the traffic and like, all the stuff that was going on, because it just sounded so busy. And I used to wonder what everyone was like doing and things like that. But I never remember being particularly frightened. And by the way, like it's not like I always wondered whether it'd be something where like I had like kind of regressed like or kind of repressed like a painful memory or something like that. But like I've worked with a therapist for best part of 6 years now, and it's not come out. I genuinely think that is what it is. I was quite happy. I accepted that I was different to some of the other kids, and I was happy, and I did everything that I could, and I wanted to play football and things like that, and I just always tried my hardest. That's all I ever did. And then kind of, I suppose, when I went to secondary school, when I kind of got, hit like kind of 14, 15, that was the first time when I started to want to do more, but that my body probably wouldn't allow me to do. So like my mates would play, they playing school football, and, they played under 15s, 16s and stuff like that at local level. And I remember like, I just couldn't keep up with it. And I remember that was probably the first time when I think I started to feel self-conscious about myself more than anything. I suppose it's quite a weird one, because it was kind of double folded. Like the thing is, everyone's self-conscious as a teenager. That's by proxy. Everyone is. Everyone has their own kind of hang-ups. And so it just so happened that, I don't see, my hang-ups as any worse or more severe than anyone else's as a teenager. It just so happened that my hang-ups were associated with, obviously, the body that I'd been born into, and I just wanted to play football. That's all I wanted to do, is play more football. And I remember I was in pain so much. I ended up playing like it's called pan disability football, as it was at the time. So it's all different disabilities playing together, and discovering that, and that gave me a lease of life to play at a weekend at a level that obviously I could keep up with. But I remember I used to come home, and I remember I used to get home after a game, and I was in agony. My knee was killing me. Oh man, it was horrible. But I kept doing it because I just wanted to. It was almost like to prove to myself that I could do it, because I loved it as well. I genuinely loved it. And I remember that was probably another time when I was like, I remember it was quite difficult looking back on it now, and you kind of got all this other stuff going on, kind of like, people were getting girlfriends, and I was kind of quite shy, and then there's that self-consciousness that comes into play on the other side of it, and you're kind of like, well, a girl's going to like me, and my hands are different and stuff like that. And like, again, like every teenager has, but it just so happened that these were mine. And I'd say that was a really difficult time, actually. It really was. When I look back now, actually, I put a photo up a little while ago on my Instagram, and we'd done a school trip when I was 17, I think. And we went to Disney Paris, but it was a business studies trip. But I don't know what, I cannot tell you one thing I learned from Disney Paris, which was anything to do with business, but apparently it was a business studies trip. But I just remember just going on like, all the rides, really, going on Space Mountain with my mates. But I was in a wheelchair because I just had basically I started to go back to have surgeries. So I had surgeries on my leg. I had to have a surgery to kind of basically, where the right side where wearing my prosthetic, the kind of knee lower was kind of pointing outwards a little bit, because the way that I walked and stuff like that, and that was what was causing knee pain. So I had a bit of the bone taken out in front of it, and it kind of all straightened up. And then I had my ankle done as well. But every time I was in a wheelchair, because I couldn't use crutches, I couldn't really support myself with my arms and crutches. Basically, I'd go in the wheelchair for what, three months at a time until you could weight bear. And so that was, I remember looking at myself there, and obviously, you know, 17, but I put on a lot of timber as well. I mean, I'm not small now, but I was big then, because I just wasn't moving around really. And so I remember that was like, I look back at that photo and I remember I look back at it really enough, not long. It was when I did the first soccer aid, and I remember thinking like, I wish you kind of go back and you wish you could tell yourself, oh well, this is really shit, this situation you're in at the moment, but you know, you're never going to believe that you're going to be up against Roberto Carlos in 20 something years time or 30 years time or whatever. So it was kind of like that. I kind of looked at it, and I think I put something like it. I thought to myself, is that like that version of me almost had to suffer to get me where I am now, because I don't think without it I would have had the push, I think, to go on and do certain things and you know, objectively I've had a bloody good time of it, if I'm honest. Like that was a tough time. That was a really tough time, and I think then, you know, like I say, it was, you just kind of, I just kept moving forward, really, just kept going, and there'd be another operation, and then, you know, every time, and then I was going to go to university, and I took a year out to finally get my ankle sorted. But then I think part of it was because I was just scared to move away from home, so I tried to delay it for a year. Used the gap year to work in my local Tesco, which I actually loved. I loved that job. But it was like, I think that those times were tough, and yeah, it kind of, that at that moment I kind of just kept going. I remember thinking at the time, I just kept going forward, and I kept. I just kept. I don't know. It's hard to describe it, but it was just like. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze in a minute. Sorry, I just kept going forward, and I think that there was a bit of me where it was like, oh well, you know, it'll get better soon. This thing will get better, and you know, sometimes in some ways it didn't. But then I went to university, and I just discovered a whole new side to me and a whole new world. You know, I went up to Liverpool. I moved away from like a big, you know, I was from a fairly small town. Again, a lot of people didn't expect me to last. I don't think my mum expected. She thought I'd be back. She was desperate for me to come back. I remember my best pal saying to me after my first semester, "Look, you've proved us wrong. You've done a semester. Now you can come home. I said you wouldn't last 2 weeks. I admit it. You've proved me wrong. Now can you just please come home?" And it was like, well, no. I'm not. I'm going to carry. I love it up here. It's absolutely. It was amazing, and I think they were kind of. I think turning points for me. I think they were, and I'd kind of almost. There was almost an acceptance that certain things that I would love to do, maybe I couldn't, and I think I started to get slightly more confident. You know, in myself, even though I was still very self-conscious. I think in many ways, God, in many ways, like, you know, I remember I didn't get my first girlfriend until I was like 20, and you know, obviously she knew I had the one leg. She knew. You can't not know. It's not the sort of thing you can exactly hide for too long. But I remember I stayed at a house and I didn't take my leg off. And I remember I stayed there. It was about, we got together, and like we just kind of spent like the first, like this 2 weeks or so just at each other's houses. But you're not meant to sleep in a prosthetic. It's the same as if someone said to you, you wouldn't sleep in socks and shoes. It's exactly the same thing. It's just not good for you. And so I'd slept in my prosthetic for like 2 weeks nearly. And I remember it was like, it was really bad. Like it was really painful and stuff like that. And then eventually, like the big thing was obviously just like, you know, when she was like, "Are you meant to wear this?" And I was like, "No." And I remember getting really emotional, and I was like, "I just, you know, don't want you to be weirded out." And she was like, sound about it, obviously. And again, it's that moment where you just go, "Oh, again, this is the voice in my head that was telling me that maybe I can't, you know, this is going to be, I don't know, you know, someone's going to be weirded out by it." It's your own kind of, not demon's the wrong word. It's a voice that we all have in our heads that tells us Either, you're not going to be good at this. That thing that you've just done, was that good enough? And all of that, or maybe girls not going to, they might be weirded out as it was at that time, and actually, there was a moment where you go, oh, like, it's fine. What, this thing that the thing that you're most scared of, in essence, more often than not, once you face it, isn't as bad as what you imagined, and I think that that changed me in a lot of ways, but then I suppose, like, then kind of on the flip side of it, I ended up, kind of, I was quite I was very clingy, I would say, emotionally back then, because it's like, well, I've finally found someone who likes me, and then it's like, well, you kind of, I was an intense, I was an intense, like, geezer after that. But I think that those kind of times, I suppose, up until, I'd say kind of from maybe 14, 15, up until kind of, 21, 22, I'd say they were quite. It was a difficult period of 7 years. I'd say actually it wasn't as much as. Well, I mean, in essence, I did have to get back up every time, because I was having these operations done that were putting me in a wheelchair, and you do all the rehab and stuff like that. And I remember I came out of plaster when I was 19. I remember the day after I'd come out of plaster, and it was meant to be, just partially weight bear. I flew to Tenerife with my mates, and I had a metal plate in my ankle for the first time, and that's a completely other story. I mean, I'd had an operation done to help an ankle problem, and what the surgeon had done is he kind of purposely put a bend in my shin. He purposely, to almost align my hip and my foot up, because my foot bent round. He kind of bent my foot and purposely made a curve. Genuinely, my left shin is curved. Made a curve in it, and it looks weird. It looks like someone when they've broken their leg, but it's completely stable because its bones, it's all fused. But that was really tough. Actually, that one. Sorry to jump back, but that one was really tough, because all of a sudden it kind of looked. It looked weird. It looked a bit like, I didn't like how it looked. It does look like it does look a bit, kind of makes you kind of, your stomach go a little bit weird. If even for me, when I look at it, because it looks like your leg's about to snap, even though it's absolutely not. But I remember the surgeon, I never fully understood when he explained to me what he was going to do. And I think I will always say that he miscommunicated it with. I just don't think he told me properly. I will always maintain that. And that was the last surgery I had. I said there and then in 2003, because essentially he'd created what they would say is, I remember the words he used. I created a deformity to cure a deformity, is the words he used. And I remember thinking, but that was the leg that looked like, it's so weird. I know it's all about aesthetics when you're that age. But how does it look? How did it look in shorts? Well, I've got one leg that's clearly, a prosthetic. And that was the one that looked, for want of a better phrase, how I felt at the time, normal. That was a normal leg. It looked normal. It was fine. The foot hurt, but now you created a bend in it. So now I've got all four limbs now look different. I had one limb that looked the same, or looked the same as my mates, and now you've taken that away from me. And I remember that was hard. And I did my documentary years ago for BBC called Disability and Me, and I remember I went back to see a surgeon, an orthopaedic surgeon, for the first time since then, because I just couldn't face it. I just felt like it was almost weird. It was like a trust had been broken, even though, look, who's to say he hadn't explained to me and I'd misheard it. But it was a big thing, and it was a big shock for me, and that rattled me badly. But it took me a long time. Still now, when it still frustrates me. But then you go, I've seen a different orthopaedic surgeon, and I spoke to him about it. I went, this is a mess up, and he went, you may not like how it looks, but functionally, it works. It works. He said, you don't like it. Yes, okay. As purely aesthetics, yes, you wouldn't want it like that. But for what you need and what you've needed, is like, I'm sorry to break it to you, but it's 100%. I'd do the same thing. I'd have done the same thing. And it was kind of like, oh, all right. And that I only had that experience, 5 years ago. So I'd still spent a long time getting over it. But those things, I suppose, they were moments where, like, getting back up, where I did have to, where I really, like, it made me, it was really, really difficult. And you just want to be almost like everyone else. And it was quite weird, actually, because my hands and arms, I've never really felt that way. It's so weird. I suppose to look at me, a lot of people would probably go, "That must have been God." Apart from the thing with girls, maybe when I was a teenager, I'm very fortunate that I had an operation when I was 10 that gave me an opposable thumb, and actually, so I drive. It's the reason why I can drive. It's the reason why I live an independent life. And it's for that one surgery in 2003, which I didn't like. That other one in 1994 is the best that I could have hoped for, and it's the reason why I can write, why I drive, all of these different things, why I'm able to live an independent life. And I suppose that there's obviously flip sides. I've never really felt that about my hands. I remember it's so weird. Like, well, it's not weird, but like I've not seen I don't know what the advances are in that sort of medicine. And because I haven't seen anybody for 31 years, haven't seen a consultant. You're meant to keep these things up. Wouldn't even know all these advances that they do in surgeries and medicine. And when it comes to my hands and arms, I've not entertained it, because you get to such I'm kind of like, well, it's all right, isn't it? It's the kind of like you go, well, I'm getting on with it. I wouldn't want to roll. I suppose you wouldn't want to roll the dice, because at the same time, I'm very much when it comes to my hands, I'm very much like Mikel Arteta with 10 minutes to go. It's like, let's hold on to this here. Let's not go flying forward. Let's not go mad. Let's not pile forward and go for another surgery. Like we're winning. Let's just keep hold of what we've got. There's no maverick shit. Let's just kind of, let's stick Merino on and let's see this out. And that's very much how I am with my hands. And then, if anything, that's a very good way to be, because I'm very happy with that. And I'm not even though I kind of, that's probably the one part of me where I think people have always stared at and stuff like that. And that, that sort of thing, sometimes it's that, I'm kind of used to it now. It is the one thing. Kids are curious. I've never been offended by that. I just think it's just pure human nature. You're curious if you see something. I am at 41 when I see something I've never seen before. But obviously adults stare, but it's quite a weird thing now, because I've gone into an industry for the last kind of 13 years. Obviously people look at me, but sometimes they recognise me. And then you're kind of like, I remember being stood with Josh Widdicombe at Euston 2 years after we'd started doing Last Leg, and he was like, everyone's looking at us. And I can see he was getting really self-conscious. I remember going to him, "Oh, it's all right, just pretend they're looking at my hands, it'll make you feel better." And he started laughing, and it's kind of like, it's one or the other, isn't it? So it's either and actually sometimes it's kind of weird. I always say it's like I kind of have a body which looks different and kind of makes people look, and then I went into an industry where you're kind of out there in the public eye, and people look at you for that reason. Sometimes we went to Yorkshire Wildlife Park in the summer. There was a geezer who stood there staring, and I was sat down with my daughters, and he was staring. And I remember like saying to my wife, I was like, what's he looking at? And I remember thinking, he's looking, because I had shorts on. I was like, is he? I was like, I'm going to go to him. It's just it's a prosthetic leg, mate. You must have seen one before. I was getting proper. And then he came over. He was like, "Oh, mate, I really love The Last Leg." And you're like, "Oh, Jesus Christ." You're like, even that, it's so weird. It's part of me still that part of me, which is, I'm still my mum's voice when I was younger, don't let anyone ever, put you down. And my dad's voice, when I went to school, which is, anyone does anything, boot them with your leg. promise you it's harder than a punch. And I remember him saying that to me. And I remember doing it. I've only ever done it once. And the lad had an asthma attack when I was in primary school and I was beside myself. I felt so awful, even though he had punched me in the head. But it's like, I remember, like, that was terrible advice, Dad. Why would you tell me to do it? It's so much harder. You said it was harder than a punch, but it's so much harder. That's so much harder. Why would you possibly tell me to do that? And I remember, like, I didn't get into trouble with him for it, but there is a part of me that's still kind of, like I say, there's a little bit of siege mentality. It's always in me. But, like I say, there's a part of you, and I've learned this as I've got older now, and I certainly learned this through working with a therapist, that actually sometimes that voice that tells you can't do something, the voice that tells you, kind of sometimes you get imposter syndrome. Why? I can't believe, you don't deserve to be doing this amazing thing that you're doing or having this amazing experience. And a lot of people get it. And, I've started doing stand-up comedy more, and there's a very much more so than anything else I've done in my career, there's that voice that's like, you shouldn't be doing this isn't funny, and no, the stuff's been going well, but it's a voice inside me. But actually there's a part of that voice which actually serves people. I think it serves me. It'll be the reason why I'll double check a script, while I'll go over, I'll be in a rehearsal, we'll rehearse a sketch for Last Leg, and I'll go, what do you reckon on that? And I'll question it, because it's actually a good way. It's kind of helped me a lot. It's helped me. It's that voice of actually, is this good enough? In some ways, if you can kind of harness it a bit, it's actually good, because it gives you a good work ethic of actually, and it gives you a bit of humility, which I think in my industry is something that's very easily lost. I think when you come into the public eye. It kind of keeps me slightly more humble, and it always makes me question myself. And actually, it drives me on more. When I first started at Channel 4 in 2012, and a lot of the guys were kind of starting up their own Facebook pages. I remember that, and they were kind of all the other trainees, and I remember they'd been asked to go on T4, but I wasn't, because I was deemed too old for it. I was like 26, 27. I was too old. But I wasn't asked to go on it. But I stayed back and did research. And actually, that's what got me onto Last Leg when I first started as a journalist, was because I'd done all this research, and it was because there was a voice in me going, well, you can't do this, so let's just, you kind of work harder by default. And sometimes it has helped me. It's brought me to where I am now. So all of these difficult experiences that I've kind of had to move past. And be difficult, and that they've been difficult in that moment. And I look back, and sometimes, I often think, I wish I could go back and tell that version of myself, oh, by the way, this thing's going to happen, or this thing's going to happen, or you're going to get to do these amazing things. I wish I could, but at the same time, they probably wouldn't have happened if I could have. So that's kind of the philosophical way that I look at it, really. And I suppose, not to want to waffle on too much, but I think there was the last time I had a big. There's a couple since I've been on television, where moments where, I've thought to myself, it's been difficult. I remember I did again, just around my disability. I remember I did a show called Sink or Swim for Channel 4 in 2019. We were doing a relay race across the channel, myself and some other people in public eye, and we were doing a relay race to raise money for Stand Up to Cancer. And I could swim. I swam when I was younger, but it's a different ball game for anyone swimming in the English Channel, and it was really tough. And I remember we did our first swim. They filmed our first swim, and you had to swim like basically from the middle of this Lake Windermere, in the Lake District, to the side. And actually, in my head, 500 metres, I was like, what's that, sort of like 16 lengths of the pool? I'll smash that out easy. But obviously, when you're in the cold, and you're in the middle of the deep water, not a swimming pool where you're more buoyant, it actually took me by surprise. And I remember there was a clip where I broke down in tears. I remember holding on. There's boat, like little kayaks next to you where cameras were on. the coaches were on. I remember holding on to it, and I remember breaking down in tears, and I remember I said I can't do it. And I'd say genuinely, I think that's the first time in my life where I've said those words, and it genuinely, once I said it, I don't know whether I was saying it for all the other times I thought it and not said it. I don't know where it could, but once I'd said it, I remember I remember taking a deep breath and just going, right, well now do it. And I was trying to do front crawl, and I remember going, just go on your back like you did when you were a kid and swim it. And I remember doing it, and it became this moment that, the clip went everywhere, and people, obviously there was a very positive reaction at home, and you kind of get to the, I was just happy to get to the side, and I remember I was like, oh God, I've cried on telly, I'm going to look like a knob, and actually, obviously, the public reaction and the reaction of my teammates was very positive. Also it's like, I'm a big boy band fan, and I've got Simon from Blue stood there at this side giving me a big hug. I was crying like 20 minutes ago. This is mad. Like, what is going on? And I suppose, and then the other, and I kind of, and then I went and did it, and actually, it was so weird. Actually, once I kind of got myself going, I actually of the I think the 8 of us or 7 of us that ended up going through to swim in the channel, I was actually kind of midway up in terms of level. I wasn't the slowest by any means. I actually performed quite well. On the night we got defeated by the weather, and I actually can say that I did swim in the channel. I did backstroke in the middle of a storm, and it was horrible, but I still did it. And I think the other time when I've had to do it is with Soccer Aid, really, because Soccer Aid's is a big thing for me. It's a big thing because I loved the event. I loved being part. I loved watching it before I went on television. It's one of the few things I've done since I've been in television where you go, like, I used to watch it. So the other Celebrity Juice, when I first did that, when it was still on, was another one. League of Their Own was huge. I loved League of Their Own. So when the first time I got to do it, I lost my mind. I actually didn't speak very much, and they didn't ask me back for about 5 years, I think, because I just hadn't performed, because I was so in awe of the people that I was around. The big Gavin and Stacey fan. I'm sat there with James Corden, who was hosting, and you've got Freddie Flintoff and Jamie Redknapp and Jack Whitehall and all these people, and I was like, fucking hell. I just like, what am I doing here? And actually, I didn't really speak much, and they didn't have me back. But there was that, and then obviously Soccer Aid was massive, and I got asked to do it, and I made my peace. After a while, I made my peace that football wasn't my body. It's one of those things where, yeah, I'd love to do it every week, even at my age now. But ultimately, I think in my early 20s, I was like, well, that's that really. Mid-20s, I'd play a little bit of work five-a-side. But other than that, I was like, you're done. And I didn't play for the best part of kind of nearly 10 years, I think. And then I got asked to do Soccer Aid, and, I remember it kind of brought all these feelings back of, am I going to be able to do it? Am I going to look silly? Is it going to look like tokenism? Why have they asked me? I'm not going to be able to do what everyone else can do. And then, I got there, and it's just the most amazing event, and it's for the best cause. And I've started working with UNICEF now as UNICEF UK as an ambassador. I became an ambassador for UNICEF UK this year, and I've done 4 Soccer Aids now. But I remember going out there and going, I'm not going to be able to do this. And the reaction from the crowd was unbelievable, and it still is. But it's weird because I do Soccer Aid, and I always say it's 4 days a year now where I feel my most self-conscious, and that's where it is. And it's purely because football is so weird. Like ignoring, going to watch it, but playing it is so deeply ingrained in, because it's the one thing, it's the only thing I've ever wanted to do, which maybe my body hasn't allowed me to do as much as I wanted. And so it's almost kind of still like this bruise, I think, that is on me, that you kind of push. The bruise is pushed for 4 days, but obviously kind of what outweighs that is the people you're around, the cause, the just everything around it. Though some of the best players to play football, and all of a sudden I'm with them. And what I love most is They're not patronising with me. Them footballers, I'm telling you now, Robbie Keane nutmegged me twice in the second one I did. And he was just like, oh look, fuck it, I'm not going to treat you like different to anyone else, am I? He went, I'm gonna make you look like a dick. And I was like, yeah, no, yeah, I should have kept some clothes, shouldn't I? And he was like, yeah. And it was really funny. He was just like, but I love that. It's so amazing. They don't see me, there's no, oh, we'll let Alex score, we'll let Alex do this. They're in on me. Jill Scott has gone through me twice at Soccer Aid. Mo Farah this year. Like, I love it so much. There's no, there's no, it's no treating me any different. And that is why I love it so much, because yes, there is all of that associated with me, with football, with the fact that, but dad, and being told that about the football shoes, and sadly my dad passed away a few years before I did Soccer Aid, and I would have loved for him to have been at one, to have seen it. But my mum's seen it, and my family, my brothers have all been, and all my pals have seen it, and makes me very self-conscious, because you do the game, and like, look, even professional footballers sometimes they'll go, oh, he's only had 2 touches in that half. They've been on a whole half. I play like 15 minutes, because it's all maximum my legs allow me to do is probably about 15 minutes. And I remember there was one year I didn't even touch it, and I was devastated. I remember crying when I got home, because I was like, I've been as crap as everyone would have imagined me to be, and you just kind of, after a while, you're just like, that's not what this is about. That's not what this is about. It's not about that. My leg always blisters up, and the doctors, they just do the best job of getting me in. And I go and see my guy in Leeds, and he'll gives me an injection in my foot a few months before Soccer Aid, so I don't get any pain and stuff like that. And I'm more than happy with that now, and I hope I get to do it again. So it's kind of like, I'd say, weird enough, I think, you kind of talk about a journey of getting back up. I definitely feel, in many ways, I feel like it kind of almost got to the peak a couple of times. I feel, when my daughters were born, again, I suppose with my hands and stuff like that, I did wonder, obviously, every parent, the biggest thing, I think, as a parent, obviously, up there is probably dropping them as soon as you get them. That's how I did. That's the one thing you don't want to be doing. And I remember being worried about that. And then, I remember my mate telling me, he's like, Brooker, you lift loads more than that at the gym. You ain't going to drop them. And obviously you're not. And it's just that self-conscious voice. And I suppose that, holding both my girls is probably one moment where you go, well, that was that. And then the other one, I think, is very much that first Soccer Aid I did, and every one after, where you kind of go, well, that's, it's almost kind of, I think the word was, it like, like, you feel like you've completed disability. So I've completed it, mate. I've done it now. That's it. I've proved myself wrong. I've proved the voice in my head wrong. So it's been amazing.
And you hit the nail on the head. And what's really interesting is when you talk about the voice in your head, because we've all got that voice, every single one of us. Yeah. And what I've learned is that some of our biggest insecurities, some of the things we worry about ourselves, a lot of the time, no one else is actually thinking it or worrying about it or stressing about it as much as we are. And it does go back to our own self-doubt a lot of the time. And I actually, there was a really interesting point you said much earlier on, when you said that sometimes it's not the other people saying you can't do something. It's actually yourself telling yourself you can't do something. And once you battle through that, you realize you actually can do it.
Yeah, I think that's the big one. Or you kind of go, or I'll do it in this certain way.
Yeah.
I think that, like I say, I'm sure you've had it in your work life, and you question yourself all the time, is this good enough? Again, and we also work in an industry where, look, you're out there in the public eye, and also, with that, people do comment, and genuinely, some people can comment negatively, and I think that when you've got a slight bruise there, where the voice, what that does is that fuels you. There's a place that you can go, and when I was on it, it was called Twitter, where that voice that tells you can't do something, it was able to find some little mates who didn't have, who had usernames that were just numbers, who didn't have pictures up, and it found some mates. It finds some little pals to go, see, if I can told you, that person thinks you're crap as well. And then this person said, "Oh, you're not funny." And then this person says, like Soccer Aid. There was a clip where I did a trap the ball, and it went viral. It was an 80-mile-an-hour ball, and I said I'm going to stop it, and I stop it dead, and all Gary Cale's like jumping on my back. Everyone lost their minds because I actually did it, and there were went everywhere, and there's so many comments. And I remember looking at them, and I remember there was a couple of people who were taking Mickey, and all of that, and they were being quite mean, and start sticking me going. You kind of like, I've heard that one before. But I remember I was really down about it, really, really down. And I remember being sat there, and I'm genuinely, Robbie came up on me saying this. He completely brought me back up. He just went, "You're not. That's not that's not the bloke I know. You can't sit here and be upset about this." And he was just like, "Who cares? Look where you are now, man. Who cares? We'll love you. Who cares what some random person says? Why? Why are you so upset?" It's like, that's not who I know. That's not who you are. Just telling you now. And then he really he kind of didn't have a go at me, but he really gave me it strong. There was no, "Oh, I'm so sorry you've had to receive this, Alex." He gave me he'd tell you what, that's the reason why that bloke's doing so well in management, because I'll tell you what, his man management with me at that moment in time as my mate, I think was unbelievable. And it made me remember. And obviously you realise that a lot of these things come from jealousy. You're living a dream that anyone would want to do. You're doing things that anyone would want to do with people that anyone would want to be around in certain forms of life. And I think you see that jealousy. But like I say, I came off Twitter about 4 years ago, maybe. It was the best thing I ever did, because you basically, like I said, I'd finished doing the last leg, and I'd be there, and you'd search your name, and you go, you know why you're doing it. That's because the voice that tells you're not good enough is there, and it's in charge.
It's looking.
Yeah, it's looking, and you're going, right, let's see what's out there. And it is, it's like the same with anything, any Facebook comments page. People are so quick to comment, and it's so weird now, because everyone's always had an opinion throughout history, but there wasn't a place where it was immortalised. And it's Facebook walls, it's Instagram comment sections, it's TikTok comment sections, it's tweets, it's stuff like that, and it's a place where they live forever. Anyone can say anything as you walk past, and you go, "What'd you say?" And they'll never repeat it.
Yeah.
With these, there's a place, and I always joke. I've said it on last leg a couple of times. I was joking. There's always been a misconception. There's a thing that I heard when I was younger, which was like, "Oh, everyone should have a voice." And I think actually that social media has, in large parts, proved that maybe that's not quite true. I mean, but actually sometimes with people, maybe there are some people out there who maybe it is better if we don't hear as much from them. I do sometimes think there should be some sort of knobhead test which you have to pass before you have a social media account. And it should be mainly that you should have your own face and actual name on it. But going back to that, but like I say, that is hard in the industry. It's a weird thing, because, like I said, someone like me, that voice of kind of self-doubt has always just been just that. It's just my voice. And then I went into an industry where, like I say, it found a couple of little pals, a few if you need to find them, and I just don't look at it now. I do sometimes. It's so weird. There will be times, like I say, that was only a couple of years ago, that Soccer Aid thing. Even actually this year, where from some of it, I see it more then, because it's so high profile, and by virtue, a lot of people comment, and so that is tough. It is tough, but I don't let it affect me as much as what it did, and I am trying to harness the self-doubt into something more positive, because I do believe that it has helped me. It makes you, like I say, it gives you a bit of compassion, gives you a bit of humility. There's a little dose of it can really help you. It'll make you question your work, make you go, can I do this better? And actually, I think to me, that's a really good thing. I think sometimes there's a lot of crap that I watch, and I go, you've not questioned whether that was good enough, have you? Or if you genuinely believe that was good enough, then that is, But also everything's subjective. But like the thing with me now is stand up. Stand up comedy is something that I've been doing now. I kind of dip my little toes in the water with it, but there's still part of me that's very much, ruling me, that tells me that you shouldn't be doing it. And there's so many lovely people that have told me that, my friends, but also people who don't know me, didn't know me as well. I remember Harry Hill saying to me, "You should definitely do it," and we didn't know each other that well at the time, and that's someone who I think is one of the funniest people on the planet, and it gives me a massive boost. But like I say, those people, it's not going to help until I can get it, like this part of me, to shut up and let me kind of crack on with it, really.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And sometimes, obviously hearing other people say it to you is amazing and then can really help it. We also need to believe it ourselves. We really, really do. And it actually ties in with what you were saying earlier, is that some of the things that you've been through in your life, some of the toughest things have made you into the person you are. And it kind of goes also with the self-doubt. Some of the things I'd say we collectively, even I've probably doubted about myself and maybe still do sometimes, still continue to make me into the person that I am today. And it's interesting as well when you said earlier, if you could go back and say, but it's, you know, you're going to end up here. Would you actually tell yourself or would you not? And it's the same thing with like my accident. People say, would I go back and tell myself, by the way, you're going to have an accident, but it's going to change your life?
Yeah.
I'm like, but if I would go back and tell myself that, I probably then wouldn't go and have the accident. So I
Yeah.
actually wouldn't go back and tell myself anything, because I think sometimes it's like the thing, I don't know if you have heard this, but if you were able to read a book of your life all the way to the very, very last page, would you read it? I wouldn't. I
No.
wouldn't, because I actually, look, darkness is rubbish. It's horrible, and I don't like darkness. But I also know when I'm in it, there is a purpose that it's serving. And I know that's really random and weird to say, and people probably be like, "What?" But I've learned is serving a purpose for my future self.
Yeah, I think it does. I completely agree. I think there's a little thing now which I have where you kind of, there is part of me where obviously things have been difficult, and then you get to a point, and then it's awesome. Like objectively, now, I've lived so many of my dreams that I've had. Some, my mate said to me, "It's like some of the stuff you've done, you've been able to do, like all the things that I like when I was younger, and like obviously and you'll have done it, like we love the Arsenal, and then you get to meet people who are associated with the club, people that you've watched, and there's still part of you that goes, what's going on here?" Do you know what I mean? You're like, it blows your mind a little bit, and it is always the same. It's something different. You can meet different people, but there's something about football, I think, when it blows your mind even more.
Mm.
And I think little things like I did a job for Sky, and I got to go to the Home Alone house. I'm a massive fan of Home Alone. I met like some of the Ghostbusters from the new film. I met Ernie Hudson, who played Winston. Ghostbusters, I was massive, obsessed with it when I was younger. Soccer aid, getting to play football, getting to play up against like Roberto Carlos and like these people being, I remember being stood next to David Beckham and Roberto while Robbie Williams was singing Angels during the halftime show on the first one. And I was like, what the fuck's going on? And I've been able to live these amazing moments, obviously with my family at home and with my girls and stuff like that. And then they're happy. But there's a part of you that's like, I still struggle with now, where you almost catastrophize. And it's like almost like, oh God, I don't want anything to go wrong. I don't want them to come home sad from school. I don't want them to, I don't want Last Leg to get cancelled. I don't want to, get an email from my agent and say, oh, soccer, I don't want. Actually, if they did say they don't want me, I've had a good run and done more than a lot of people do. But it's kind of like, it's like something's going to go wrong. Or maybe, for me, my mobility, it's, I know as I get older, just by essence, that, these things, your muscles and your bones, and you have new problems. And I sit there, and sometimes I do. It's hard not to catastrophize, because you go, sometimes I thought to myself, I had these hard times and then I got out of it. But then you sometimes almost go like, oh, but am I? There's that again, that little voice that's like, but is it? Are you just almost, you kind of you've kept it at bay a little while, but maybe the life that's meant for you is to be struggled, and you've just somehow fluked or manoeuvred your way out of it for a bit, but like, oh fucking, we'll be back, and it's going to drag you down at some point, and then it's quite scary. But obviously, I realise that's very much an extreme way of feeling, and I very much, if ever I feel that way, or I start to think I'm going that way, very much through doing therapy, I've learned to be able to, because that's your child, it's your child part of your brain talking. It's not the adult way of thinking. So I try to put myself and think about things logically and go, well, actually, it's the same. It's very much, with I know it's the same for any parent when you have children. With my girls, my God, I mean, I worry about them all the time because they're just so happy. They're like, no one. They're at that age where no one's ever put them down. No one's ever told them they can't do anything. No one's ever told them that they're crap. No one's ever told them they're ugly. No one's ever criticised them, and they're just full of this, like, that childlike, this innocence.
Yeah.
And you go, oh God, someone's going to be a dick to them at school one day, and oh God, but obviously that was the whole idea of parenting, is that you prepare them for when that moment comes, that they are able to deal with it, and and they are able to kind of not let things get the better of them. And I suppose there's a plus side if and it's weird because obviously with me, when the day comes, like their dad's been through some pretty tough ones, so I'd like to think that I'll be able to give them some pretty decent advice to hopefully get them out there, get them out of whatever troubles come their way. But yeah, I mean, God, having two girls, I swear, if I had my way when they were like 14, they wouldn't leave the house after that. Honestly, now I think about, I worry about things about 10 years in advance, honestly. Boyfriend, whatever, I can't imagine one of them bringing home like a Tottenham fan going, Dad, this is my fella.
Yeah, I can't marry a Tottenham fan,
no, you can't, but you know what I mean? You just be like, oh God, this is awful. And it'll be like, some like little gobshite coming to my house going, why have you got loads of Home Alone stuff up? You're like 50. I'll be like, yeah, you little weirdo. All of these things, I've played these. I'm so weird. I play such stupid scenarios out in my head. But yeah, on the plus side, I very much, I look forward to it, and I've had some tough times, like I said, but I'm very much at the moment. Yeah, it's happy.
Good. I'm glad. And just a quick note: we all have things that going on our heads, so don't worry about it.
No, and like I say, the big thing I've always said, I do a lot of talks about places, and in to companies, and they talk about equality and how to approach disability, and I always kind of go, but a lot of these things that you're kind of asking me about, what can we do to make our staff's lives better and stuff like that, and you kind of go, it's kind of, to me, it's just the same as you do with anyone else, isn't it? It's kind of like letting someone know you're there, and if they've got a problem, someone to come to. Like a lot of problems, or issues that I face in my life, like I said about being self-conscious when I was a teenager, they weren't just it's not just exclusive to having a disability. These things, these are life problems. They're not disability problems. Okay, there's an aspect of it which is unique because of my disability, yes, and that it kind of is what makes it unique to me. It's no different to a lot of stuff my mates have gone through, and they've got all their limbs. Do you know what I mean? It's I think that it's these problems that I've had, even though obviously it's slightly different to what people may hear normally because it is unique, and my body is unique, and things like that. But these are just things that I know all my mates have gone through, all my pals, and they've all in their work life, personal lives, growing up, all things that people have been self-conscious about, or they're self-conscious about now, or and I just think it's not just a disability thing, and it's just what makes it, that aspect is what's made it unique for me, perhaps, I think. But it's not just, these aren't what I'd call disability problems. They're just life. It's just life. It's just the things that we all go through.
Everyone's story is unique to themselves. That's what I always say. Even if your story is really similar or dissimilar to someone else's, it's still unique to you, but we can actually all relate to each other in our own ways. We've spoken a lot today about like self-consciousness. And before we wrap up, I want to ask you then, what advice would you get? I mean, and I know we all still go through it. Don't worry, it's not like cool, done. I'm not, I'm healed. I'm not, self-conscious about anything ever again. But what would you say to somebody that you still say to yourself, maybe, or that you have been saying to yourself when someone is extremely self-conscious about something to the point where they can't even get out of bed? It's that kind of
Yeah,
self-consciousness.
I
What
think
would you
that
say?
it's obviously like we say, it's always unique to.
Yeah.
It's always difficult to go like to understand how someone else is feeling. Like I've had like I say, for example, just in my world, like like I say, with amputees, like I don't, even though we're branched under the same, we're kind of under the same kind of term. I'll never know what it's like to have had, well, unless obviously I lose my left foot, which ideally I won't. But I don't know really what it's like to have had one thing one way and then for things to have changed. Like when you talk about when you say when you had your accident, I've only like kind of almost like I've had my whole life to get used to a way of doing things. So I've never had that moment where things change. That one moment where something has changed, and it's so weird. Like when I hear people talk about it, and I've just been talking recently online to a lad who has just had an amputation, a young lad, and I don't know what he's gone through because I've not experienced it. But at the same time, while we may not always know what exactly how that person is feeling completely, because these things, like you say, they are unique. But the things I think that are overarching are is a belief that not to lose a belief that things can get better. And I think that and things a period of time where things are difficult can and it may be a long period of time. I'm not saying it's a day or an hour or a fleeting moment or reading a tweet or reading a comment or my times of difficulty I've had all sorts of time scales on them. And there's stuff now where even after 41 years, like the football stuff, that's still there. That's a long old kind of struggle. But what I would say is almost like a belief that things genuinely can get better, because I know I know I've had that feeling of despair where I've told myself, "Oh, this is just going to be. This is it. This is your lot. This is what life's meant to be for you. This is what I remember being in when I was struggling with my legs. This is what life is meant to be for you. This is just it." And I think that actually that's slightly wrong, because I believe that things can change, and I believe, and it's not always like. Sometimes I think to myself, I would never go to someone, and it's up to you to do it. You've got to do it right now. So stop feeling this way and go and change it, because it's just not that easy. It's like grief. It's like you cannot. There is no right or wrong way of doing it. And sometimes I hear a lot of podcasts. Sometimes I hear a lot of advice that's dished out, and you hear people saying, "Oh, if you get up at 5 a.m. and attack the day, and this is how I do it," and it's like bollocks. I just think that's how you do it, because that's unique to your life. Like I just think, what a load of bollocks. And I'm sorry to swear, but it is. And I just think that whatever you're feeling is, there's no. You can't give people timescales because it's always unique to us. But I just think is the one thing I do know is things can get better, or they can change, or sometimes a sideways move can almost give you a bit of relief from a way of feeling, or a way that's a difficulty, a moment. And I think that it can be that things can be small, and it's to not put timescales on stuff, and just kind of, but at the same time just kind of have this, like I say, and again, this may it's it's not always, and I've you probably heard this before. It's not always like about sometimes taking massive strides forward, because that's just not realistic. Sometimes it is little steps, and for me, I remember being in my wheelchair when I was younger, and that's the most self-conscious I feel. The little thing, I remember going out with my pals, and I remember like just going back out and seeing them, and just like seeing them. And at that time, that was what I needed. It made me feel better. And it can be little things. It doesn't always have to be this great. You need to change everything today. Rip it all up. Like, stop eating bread. So fucking what? I've eaten bread for ages. Why don't I just cut down a little bit on it? Do you know what I mean? It's like all of this stuff. It's like, I think it's about kind of making the changes that are unique to you. And also, I do believe that everyone should find something where they can try and be proud of themselves. So certainly, if you said to me, my little girls, what I'd say to them is to find something that's you can be proud of, whether it even be a thing that you've done or a bit of compassion. Like, whenever my girls, they do something which is really kind, and I always go, that's a really lovely thing to have done. What a lovely thing to have gone and made sure that kid was okay, who was crying. You just go, let them know. It's little things, just something to have a bit of pride, And I think that we all have that. We all have things that make us good people, and it's like trying to find that and kind of hold on to that. And then that, sometimes once you start thinking a little bit about that, all of a sudden you're not thinking about how difficult this other thing is, and then you maybe will find yourself making little steps forward.
Well, one day at a time is a pretty good pace.
Yeah, it is. I'd say, yeah, one day at a time, like 1 hour at a time.
Yeah.
Take it down a minute. Just I just think, yeah, one day at a time. Just move at your own pace. I would never say to someone, this is the way to do it. I've done it this way, so you should do it this way, because that's just not realistic.
No, I think, and what it is as well is you can try 100 different ways, but that's the point where also just don't give up, because that 101 time or 102 time that's different to anything everyone's ever said might be the thing that then changes your life.
Yeah, 100%. 100%, mate.
Is there anything else you'd like to share today?
No, I think I've talked loads. I feel like I'm worried that I've talked too much, mate. But no, I think that's a really good note to move on, and I'm able to now talk as someone who's has worked with a therapist for a number of years, and it's probably the best investment I've ever made in my own personal kind of mental health. It was starting that process a long time ago, and I very much find it very worthwhile. And I kind of speak as someone who's worked worked through a lot of stuff. So I kind of hope that maybe if you're listening, and you might take maybe a little thing, or maybe you'll take absolutely nothing from any of it I've said, and that's okay too.
That's okay too. Exactly.
Yeah,
that's okay too.
You could think it's complete crap, and I'm all right for that. Just don't send me that as a comment.
Yeah, no, we don't need to see that. Exactly. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you for being here today. Life will knock us down, sometimes hard, and sometimes more than once. And when it feels impossible, know that your story isn't over yet. Sometimes when everything is falling apart, it's really falling into place. You have the power to rise, to heal, to make magic, and to evolve. And you have the power inside you. We all do. You have the power to get back up.